For months, pretty much the whole world was watching this legal battle of epic proportions unfold. I mean, on one side, you had the full power of the United States government, and on the other, Sean Diddy Combs, a global music mogul, facing charges that could have literally put him in prison for the rest of his life. So what on earth happened?
For decades, Sean Combs built this persona as the ultimate self-made man. From Puff Daddy to P. Diddy, he was the living, breathing embodiment of the American dream, right? A super powerful entrepreneur, a philanthropist, a true titan of the music industry. But the question everyone's asking now is, was there a totally different story unfolding behind the scenes?
Let's be clear, this was not just another celebrity scandal. No way. Federal prosecutors came at him with everything they had. We're talking accusations of sex trafficking and leading a criminal enterprise. The stakes just could not have been higher, with that potential life sentence hanging over everything. So, after a trial that absolutely captivated and, let's face it, divided the public, it all came down to a jury of 12 regular citizens. Their job? To somehow separate fact from fiction, allegation from actual evidence. So, what did they decide?
Okay, so let's get into it. On July 2nd, 2025, the verdict finally came in. And wow, it sent absolute shockwaves through the legal world and the entertainment industry.
The jury came back with a split decision. It was a really stunning result, and one that was immediately seen as a massive, massive victory for Combs' defense team and a pretty major blow to the government's entire case. So here's the breakdown. It was a real mixed bag. Combs was acquitted, found not guilty of the most serious charges. We're talking racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, kidnapping, and arson, all off the table. But the jury did find him guilty on 2 lesser counts of transportation for prostitution. What does that mean? Well, he avoided that life sentence, but he's still facing up to 20 years in federal prison.
So you might be wondering, how did the government even build this case? Well, they used a really powerful and honestly pretty controversial legal tool, one that has a long history of taking down some of the most notorious criminals out there.
They charged Combs under the RICO Act. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because this is the same law that was originally designed to dismantle the mafia. It basically lets prosecutors target someone for a pattern of crimes that were all committed as part of a bigger organization. And in this case, the government argued that Bad Boy Records was that organization, and Combs was its godfather. And the list of what the prosecution alleged was just huge. They claimed that Combs led this whole conspiracy using his business empire to carry out a massive range of criminal activities, everything from sex trafficking and forced labor to arson and obstruction of justice, the whole shebang. And the government really made it clear that this case was about something much bigger than just one man. The U.S. Attorney Damian Williams pretty much framed it as a stand against the abuse of power, vowing to go after anyone involved in sex trafficking, no matter how famous or how rich they are. Now, the prosecution's strategy wasn't just about things that happened recently. No, they painted a picture for the jury of a pattern of violence and controversy that they argued has followed Combs for his entire career. To build this case, prosecutors pointed way back. They brought up the tragic crowd crush back in 1991. The infamous Club New York shooting, and of course, that deeply disturbing 2016 hotel video where you see him assaulting Cassie Ventura. All of this history really formed the backdrop for the trial. And here's the crucial turning point. This all really came to a head after Cassie Ventura filed her explosive lawsuit. Combs settled it for reported $20 million in just 24 hours. And that move, it basically opened the floodgates for more accusers to come forward, which ultimately triggered the whole federal investigation.
So let's go inside the courtroom itself, because this was a true heavyweight fight. You had the full force of the U.S. government on one side, and on the other, one of the most expensive legal teams ever put together.
Yeah, Combs spared absolutely no expense on his defense. It's reported he spent up to $10 million on what everyone was calling his dream team of high-profile lawyers. This sent a really clear signal that he was going to fight for his freedom and his reputation with everything he had.
So the jury was presented with 2 totally different stories. On one hand, the prosecution argued there was this 20-year pattern of criminal behavior, and they used that assault video as clear proof of coercion. On the other hand, the defense team claimed it was all just a shakedown for money, arguing that his lifestyle, while maybe unconventional, was not a federal crime.
The prosecution's case really relied heavily on some incredibly powerful and often really disturbing testimony. One anonymous witness, who went by the name Mia, alleged that Combs had raped her at his LA home all the way back in 2010. But the defense was relentless. They attacked the credibility of every single witness. For instance, one of the attorneys, Brian Steele, brought up Mia's own social media posts where she had called Combs a legend, and he also pointed to a $400,000 settlement she received. The whole goal was to suggest her motives were financial. This was a key part of their playbook. So, with the verdict in, what does it all mean? This case just raises these huge questions about celebrity, about accountability, and about the very nature of our justice system. For Sean Combs, the outcome is, well, it's complicated. He secured a massive legal victory by getting acquitted of those really serious charges. But in the court of public opinion, after months of devastating testimony and that infamous 2016 video that everyone saw, his reputation and his legacy are pretty much forever tarnished. Outside the courthouse, his lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, was celebrating the verdict as a huge triumph for the jury system. He basically declared that 12 ordinary citizens stood up to the power of the federal government and, in his exact words, got the situation right. But at the end of the day, that leaves us with this final, really crucial question. The verdict is